1 minute. T-minus 50 seconds. T-minus 40 seconds. T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Good morning. Yeah, I said it. Good morning, because it's wherever you are, it's still morning. Happy Sunday to you all. It is, in my opinion, in my whatever it's worth, useless, humble opinion, the second greatest day of the year. The first being Super Bowl Sunday for this time of year. The second, of course, being opening day. Now, Thursday doesn't really count as opening day because that's kind of a tease. It's kind of like the last of the preseason, so to speak. You got one game, and then that's it. But Sunday is really, really when it all begins. Congratulations to all of the college teams that play on Saturdays. Yesterday, man, what great college football. Fantastic stuff. And then it looks like today is going to be a wonderful day. And as you can tell, if you have not heard before, I am a big Eagles fan. I know. If you're a Cowboys fan, good morning and go fuck yourself. My name is Chris Tidwell. You are joining me on episode 9. 9. Niet. Nada. No. 9. Of my TiDtalks. These are things that have been going on for a while now, for 9 episodes to be precise. And it looks like they're not ending anytime soon because I've got a few flashbacks, as you were, because like I'm telling the story and I'm here and I'm there and I've gone from like being in a cult as a little kid to getting chased out of where we lived and making our way up the West Coast and into Spokane. And then I left Spokane because my dad died and I had to go back to Vegas. And these are all things that we've talked about previously on some of these episodes. But then as you start thinking about some of the stuff and I start talking about it and I realize, oh shit, I forgot about that certain thing of my life, or I forgot about that story. And so every once in a while, going forward now that I've got the early days of myself out of here, you start to remember some of the things that you forgot about when you were a kid, and some of those stories. And so, like I said, going forward, you might hear a few different things. As we move forward, where I'm like, wait a second, forgot about that. Let's go back and talk about that. So thank you, everybody who is joining me today on this Sunday. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful day wherever you are. Thank you for those of you joining in the chat on side of YouTube at TiDtalk on YouTube. Also at Notorious TID on all of my other socials. Which include Instagram, Twitter, Threads. What else is there? I don't even know. But I hope you're all having a great day. I don't know what you guys got planned for the big football games today. Hopefully everybody is a football fan. If you're not, give it a shot. Give it a shot. It's exciting. It's fun. It's invigorating. And I mean, cheerleaders are always fun to look at too, right? And I mean, unless, sort of dudes in tight white half pants, if that's what you're into. Can't fault them for it. It's just one of those things. So, if you've noticed in the description of what we're talking about this week, what I'm talking about, and please feel free. Let's have a chat. Let's have a discussion. Throw some stuff in there in the chat. If anything that I say is comparable to your lives, or if there's a story that, might be along that same plane, maybe something that I say, because this has happened in the past, something that I say brings up something, a memory of yours, feel free. Toss it in there. I am okay with it. We're going to try to get this energy going. It was a long night. Oh, very long night for me last night. Of course, you also know that I am a UFC fan, and last night, big fights down in Australia. So up late, imbibing in a few beverages. And by few, I mean a lot. So, when I decided to make the decision of changing the time slot so that I could accommodate for my own watching of football on Sundays, and yours, of course, because, who wants to fucking listen to me at, 3:00 in the afternoon Eastern time, right? When you're in the middle of watching all of those 1:00 Eastern time games. This is the one thing that I miss greatly about living on the West Coast. And that was being able to wake up in the morning, right? Because you got to remember, on the East Coast, if a game starts at 1:00, that means that it starts at 10:00 in the morning, which is an appropriate time to start football. Let's face facts, ladies and gentlemen. Because you've already gotten through lunch if it's a 1:00 start. You've already gotten through that. And then you got to stay up late to watch, that late game, that game that starts at 8:30 at night on a Sunday. But you wake up in the morning, you can even kind of sleep until that 8:00, 8 o'clock in the morning. You get up, you have some breakfast, you get all cleaned up, you throw a big chunk of meat on the smoker or on the barbecue to get, through to lunch. And then people start showing up in the morning after they've had theirs, and you have a couple of mimosas or, some cheladas or whatever your morning drink is on a Sunday. And you get after it. You get after it nice and early. And then that last game is on at 5:00, 5:30. And everybody's out of there, and you still have a reasonable time to be able to, get to bed. That isn't midnight, 1:00 in the morning by the time it's all said and done. And you get to wake up early on the Monday and go to work and talk about how shitty or how great your team did the night before. Hopefully somebody else at your work also likes football, because otherwise you just look like a dickhead talking about your own bullshit, which I do all the time because, like I said, I'm an Eagles fan. So go Birds. Shout out to all of my fellow Philadelphia Eagles fans out there. It was kind of weird if you think about it. I was, talking to somebody about growing up on the West Coast, but all of my sports teams that I liked seemed to be all East Coast teams. I don't know what that was. Like for basketball, I was a Boston Celtics fan growing up. I was a big Larry Bird fan. Nerdiest looking dude on the court, dropping threes on everybody, made me a huge fan. For baseball, I was a New York Mets fan, right? The 86 Mets, unbelievable team. Fantastic stuff. Now, my Uncle Danny was a New York Yankees fan. And so you couldn't just jump on the bandwagon, right? And all those Subway Series games that they would have. So I became a Mets fan. And I still don't regret it, as horrible as some of those seasons were. And then you think about hockey, Boston Bruins fan. These are all East Coast teams. Seems really weird, right? And then, of course, football. football being a Philadelphia fan. Now, soccer isn't a sport, so I'm not a fan. Yep, you can fight me on that too. It's an activity. It's an activity for people that can't afford shoes or air to put in a ball. It's for children. Now, I get it. They make millions of dollars and all. Shut the fuck up, Chris. You know what you're talking about. Highest paid athletes. You can run really fast and for a long fucking time. Whoop-de-doo. Your game ended at 1-0. You can't even say 0. You fucking say 0. What kind of horseshit is that? Soccer. Kiss my ass. Put some body checking in that shit. Not this fake stuff. Not this stuff that ends up, looking way worse than even professional wrestling. Like some of the way that these dudes take dives, it looks like a freaking beer commercial. Remember those beer commercials that they had where they implemented professional wrestling and like dude would throw a punch and it'd be like a 1.5 feet away and they'd still, sell it, still put it over like they got hit. It was great stuff. Anyways, I'm a rambling mess. I'm a rambling mess because I've been up because I don't sleep. So horrible sleeps lead to getting out of bed very early, too early, get a bunch of stuff done. And then you realize all of a sudden, boop, we're on it. We're in it. The day is going. And it's 11 o'clock Eastern. You got to get ready for all of this stuff. So that being said, good morning, Johnny 1.0. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning, Tiff. As always, congratulations to the Washington State University Cougars taking on Wisconsin yesterday. Listen, it sucks what's going on with that division and the fact that I think there's only 4 teams left in there. Before you know it, they're going to have two pack, conferences and all of college football probably, and kind of sucks for the people like locally that cheer for those teams. So listen, Cougars have always been a thing. They've always got a place in my heart. Living in Spokane for as long as I did, you live on that side of Washington State, you become a Cougars fan. You live on the other side of the state, you become a Washington Huskies fan, right? Let's not get it twisted. Cougars are way cooler than Huskies all day, if you know what I mean. Good morning to Sunday, Jen. I hope you enjoy or are enjoying. You and Joe are enjoying your Sunday as well. Hope it's a great day where you guys are. Hope it's nice and sunny. Yes, and I will, Tiff. I will ramble on. Jesus. For at least an hour, it seems. You know what I'm saying? At least an hour. And this is how you can tell. I went and I actually put a hat on today, right? Just to cover up the head because it's football day and I got shit to do still. So, anyways, let's get nice and comfortable. For those of you that have a coffee, have a sip of your coffee. For those of you that have a smoke, have a drag off your smoke. And we are going to casually tell some stories. Now, one of the things, like I was talking about, if you remember, living in Spokane, Washington, I went to high school for a very short period of time in grade 9 at Lewis and Clark High School. Now, anybody who knows anything about the Pacific Northwest knows that Lewis and Clark play a huge role in everything around there. Lewis and Clark, Sacagawea, John Smith, that whole story of, discovering the path to the Pacific, so to speak, right? And so, of course, in Spokane, they have a Lewis and Clark High School. Now, Lewis and Clark High School, a very big school, from what I remember. Probably bigger now because, more people live in that city. And I always remember it was one of those schools that had it was old still. I don't know if they've done any renovations or rebuilt it or anything like that, but it was really old still. And so old that they had an old wrestling room that was down in the basement, right? Like the old gym that you just never, they kind of used it for whatever, right? And they had their bigger gymnasium for, basketball games and stuff like that. But this was this little tiny dark room down in the corner. And again, I didn't play football. I didn't play basketball. I played in the band. I played music there. I was a drummer. And this is where I kind of got the chops, so to speak, the bug to be playing music was there. Morning, Carissa. Thank you so much for joining us as well. We're just talking about living in Washington, going to Lewis and Clark High School. Now, one of the things that Lewis and Clark High School, I mean, for myself anyways, the biggest thing that Lewis and Clark High School is known for, in my opinion, because it happened when I went there, was, a lot of these little cities film movies. And Spokane has done its fair share. I think the movie Tag, I think some of that was filmed there. The scenery with the rivers and everything like that is fantastic. But I think the most famous, I could be wrong, to me anyways, the most famous movie that was ever filmed in Spokane, Washington was probably a movie called Vision Quest. Vision Quest was a movie that was done back in 1985 with Matthew Modine playing a high school wrestler going up against his arch rival. Shoot was his name, right? This jacked up, just completely jacked up dude. Let's actually take a quick look here, if you guys don't mind. We're going to try to do this. We're going to try to do this properly. We're going to add this here. We're going to do this here. We're going to play around like this and like this and like this.
At first, all Loudon Swain could think of was getting in shape. But since
filmed, just so you know, they filmed all of this stuff in a couple of different high schools. And this is the story about the Thompson wrestling team. And of course, this became iconic over the years. This movie Vision Quest, and of course the Thompson stuff. And
the girl of his dreams, all he can think of is her shape.
oh, that's nice, right?
Kidding me? Trenton, New Jersey.
So if you take a look at this right here, and you've heard me talk about when I wrestled in school as well, and we would wear these sauna suits, right? You would wear all of these things. You'd wear over the top of your clothes, or garbage bags, so to speak. Such an unhealthy practice, ridiculously unhealthy practice. But we all did it just to cut weight.
Maybe we can ask her to stay with us.
Yeah, just have some homeless chick move in with you. Now, here's the thing. He's supposed to be a high school kid, okay? He's 26 years old when they filmed this thing, just so you guys know. It is no way, shape, or form a kid. Here's the thing that I have always asked myself as you get older and you watch these things, and you think about all of these iconic movies, yeah, I don't know, why you would ever think that that's a good idea, even for a film trailer, sniffing this poor young lady's underwear while she stays at your house. But anyways, this movie, Vision Quest, that was the trailer that they put out for it. This is a movie about wrestling, and absolutely no wrestling in that trailer. Ridiculous. But one of the things that I'll never forget is that going to Lewis and Clark High School, the person who was in charge of the music department for the entire school district was also the music teacher for us at Lewis and Clark High School. And of course, when it comes time, because you're doing a movie about schools, right? You're doing a movie about high school wrestling. And of course, there's going to have to be a pep band in that. So he obviously chose his band, his school music department to be the pep band, right? And so we got to take a bunch of time off. You're off for filming and you wake up and you have to go to school early, right? Because they start filming super early. And I can remember there being, it was like late winter, early spring, when they filmed this stuff. So still really cold, snow on the ground. And I remember one time, one of the days that we were filming, we get to the school nice and early, and we start loading up stuff. And we got to go in and out of the building. And drummers are notorious just for being dickheads, especially to one another. Other dudes in the drum line and that played with you and stuff like that. Not like that, weirdos, but other guys that played drums with you and that, we were always just on each other, busting balls, picking on one another, not to mention the fact that you're a high school kid, right? So you're just a dick anyways. But I remember one of these days, we're loading stuff up and somebody's in front of me in the, runs ahead and then grabs the door and pulls the door open. You would shut the door really quick so that you couldn't get into there before it closed. Funny joke. It's what we do to kids. Seems so stupid now. Well, I had an answer for all of that. And so what I did was I decided to take a punch at the window. Not a big hard punch or anything like that. Just kind of like could have punched you if that glass wasn't there. Well, it turns out that when I did punch said glass in the window, and it being as warm as it was inside of the building and as cold as it was outside, the entire glass door, like it was one of those steel door, but with a giant glass window at the top part of it. Whole thing just explodes. Shatters into a million pieces. Thankfully, not a cut on my hand at all, right? Just the way that, because it was one of those just like, you just got to tap it. You don't got to put your fist through it. You just got to tap it, right? And then it shatters. And of course, it makes this gigantic noise. The teacher comes down, and in my infinite wisdom, because I'm thinking to myself, oh shit, if I tell him I busted that thing, then I'm not going to get to have the day off of school. He's going to kick me out of the film thing. And I'm not going to fucking, get a chance to do any of that fun stuff. So I tell him, I was like, I don't know. We closed the door and the whole thing just shattered. Nobody touched it. And he believed it. Thank God for that. Because then off to filming we would go. And we did this stuff where they're filming the wrestling scenes, and it was at one of the other high schools that had a much bigger and newer looking gymnasium than say Lewis and Clark did, because Lewis and Clark was one of the older schools. And we'd end up and we'd go and they'd have these huge crowds. And as you can see here, from the movie stuff, you'll notice, and it's really hard to see because these are all screen captures, from a movie from 1985, right? But you see here all of these idiots in their red sweaters back there. This was the band. This was the pep band, right? We were in. And one of these guys right down at the bottom, right in behind where the leg is there, you see that guy sitting over there. That is yours truly. Right over in there. Now, you look at these guys. These guys were in no way, shape, or form high school kids. All of us were. And we're looking at these dudes, and I wrestled on the team, and I even said to myself, there is no way in hell those dudes go to high school. Now, Matthew Modine, we kind of knew who he was. Any of the other guys we didn't really know. And one of the things that was always kind of cool was of course, you get your lunchtime. They cut, you go to lunch, and everybody has to. You all go over into this other room. These tents and stuff like that they had set up. And you would think to yourself, like the stars of the movie, would mind their own business and go to their own trailers or do whatever. I don't know. This was the first movie I'd ever even been a part of. And you would think to yourselves, maybe maybe they're just going to go be by themselves. You don't get to hang out with movie stars. The fuck are you? You're just a kid playing in a pep band scene, right? But no, this guy did. He hung out with all of the extras, hung out with everybody, was fantastic. A fantastic dude. In between sets, you would look over, instead of sitting on a chair waiting for stuff, he's sitting down there. He's doing a ton of push-ups, just trying to keep that pump going, right? For camera. 26-year-old dude at the time, right? Knew the right things to do. Now, of course, everybody remembers Matthew Modine. He went on to do such much bigger movies, if you think about it. But I mean, to us, Vision Quest, to people that are inside of the wrestling business or to people that just have a love for the Pacific Northwest, Vision Quest is probably the bar, right? It is the level of excellence that you want to have, because for some reason, the movie inside of the wrestling world, always fantastic. Not that it's a great movie, but Matthew Modine went on to do things like, he was Joker, Full Metal Jacket, right? This is a guy who had a fantastic, or probably still does, actually. I shouldn't say had. It's not gone. Fuck am I? Has a fantastic career. There's no doubt about it. So shout out to Matthew Modine for getting that bug going, and I've since been able to do a couple of other projects on film. One that we'll talk about, and we'll probably be doing a watch along at some point. Just got to figure out the logistics on it. A movie called the Jesse Ventura movie that a bunch of us later on, all about professional wrestling. It was a made-for-TV movie that aired. That movie aired the same exact night of the death of Owen Hart at a pay-per-view. And we'll tell those stories about, making of that movie and befriending guys like Chris Kanyon and some of the wrestlers that came down from WCW to do that movie. We'll talk about that one. Talk about Tiger Claws 2, with Bolo Young that they filmed in Toronto as well. And a few other projects. We'll be talking about those as we get to those timelines. But I didn't want to tell any of these stories without talking about Vision Quest, because Vision Quest really was the first one that kind of, pulled it all off. Terry Nee is saying 1984 Matthew Modine, Nicolas Cage movie, Birdie. Odd, but interesting. All right. I'm in. I mean, you said Nicolas Cage, so you didn't really have to say the word odd. That's for sure. Nicolas Cage is very odd. I can't imagine the dynamic with him and Matthew Modine together. So I will check that out. And those of you that also want to check it out, please do so. Terry Nee, fantastic representative of the things that we do here on the internet, on these YouTube channels. Big fan of the Dabbleverse. Thank you so much for joining us. And we will check out that movie. Now, one of the other things that this also made me realize was that when you get in a chance to meet those movies, you realize what a small world it is. Because then after I left Washington and went back to Vegas, because I had to deal with the death of my dad, my real father, and dealing with that stuff, and stayed down there, finished off high school, blah, blah, blah. While I was down there, I remember one time me and my uncle and I went to one of these trade shows, like a comic show or a card show, or I don't know, one of these sausage fest fucking conventions, basically, right? For uncles to take their nephews and fathers to take their sons and weird dudes to just go there for whatever reason. But I remember there happened to be a table there, and we had filled out the little card for your information to come try a free class, right? And you're like, yeah, whatever. And then one night at my in my grandmother's place, I get a phone call, which was weird because I usually didn't get phone calls, right? This was a time where it was like, nobody calls me. Just kind of knew when to hang out with your friends, where to go and whatnot. So nobody really called. But I get this phone call one night, and it's a representative from a place called UFAF. Now, UFAF, for those of you that don't know, is the United Fighting Arts Federation. Okay. United Fighting Arts Federation was an organization started and founded by a gentleman by the name of Chuck Norris. And I'm sure everybody has heard of Chuck Norris and the tales about how Chuck Norris has another fist under his beard, and Chuck Norris, got into it with the rattlesnake, and finally 3 days later, the rattlesnake died, blah, blah, blah. All of those lores, right? Now, Chuck was the man. Chuck was he was the white Asian guy, basically. He was the white guy in all of these Asian kung fu movies, right? Obviously got his reputation and his start doing movies with Bruce Lee, as we remember. That gigantic chest hair, if you want to call it that, looked more like a fucking bunch of mangroves growing all over him. That's where everybody found out about Chuck Norris. So inside of Las Vegas, he had set up these like almost like franchise places. Some of his black belts were opening their own schools. And when I say some of his black belts, you think about it like you had a guy, Chip Wright, who was like a world champion in karate fighting, tournament fighting, because you had different divisions all over the United States. And Chip Wright was a champion's champion in all this, one of Chuck's black belts. A gentleman by the name of Pat Johnson was Chuck's first black belt, if I remember correctly. Pat Johnson, you're thinking to yourself, why would I know that name? You probably wouldn't unless you're a fan of watching movies and following the credits. Because Pat Johnson was actually the guy who did the choreography, all of the karate moves and stunts and stuff like that, for a movie called The Karate Kid. That's right. So all of those Karate Kid stuff, there's another tie-in with Chuck Norris. And in the city of Las Vegas, there's a gentleman by the name of Bob Barrows who opened up a school there. And that was who we had gotten a phone call from, I say we, me and my split personality, I guess, got a phone call from for that free trial, that free class, right? Still to this day, it's the greatest way to get people into your business if what you do is a gym or any kind of, fighting school, be it karate or judo, or jiu-jitsu or boxing or wrestling or professional wrestling or acting, right? It's always been a big funny one for me. Man, you could be famous. Look at your cheekbones. Look at the structure of your eye sockets. You could be unreal. I can't believe nobody's ever picked you up. You should be in movies. I can make you a superstar. All I need you to do is come down to the office and fill out some paperwork, and we'll get you going. There's this other part where you're going to have to pay us $800 for exclusive headshots, but it's gonna pay itself off. You're gonna be the next Oscar winner out there. I have no doubts in my mind. Get the fuck out of here. But it's always been the greatest thing. Now, as a teenager, and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, fucking right. Free karate class? Let's go check this shit out. Right? I'd always wrestled and stuff. And my uncle was, he was already out of the military at that point. So the two of us decided we're going to go check this out. And it was fantastic. It was a wonderful experience. And that was where I kind of fell in love with martial arts, was, at this karate school, Bob Barles, Tang Sudo, United Fighting Arts Federation, inside of a plaza in Las Vegas, which also happened to be the plaza of my favorite Mexican restaurant, Ricardo's, which is no longer around. Shout out to y'all. But we would go there, and of course we had already known who Chuck Norris was, right? And the testing and the grueling stuff. And there's some things that people don't understand and know really about Chuck Norris, and how his tie, the lore of Chuck, so to speak, right? And the lore of all of the things that, Chuck has done. I mean, Walker, Texas Ranger, and Sidekicks, and all of these corny things that he did, but then all of these other movies, what was it? This high trucker, big rig thing, and he would always have some of his guys inside of his movies. But to me, one of the greatest things that a lot of people don't realize is that if you're a fan of current day MMA and the UFC, and if you watched any of the old UFC, you would see that they, when it was still owned by the original owners, the SEG, the Semaphore Entertainment Group, you would realize that they were putting up, like, the whole thing was set up to put over Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. And they would have like these gimmick, kind of matches where you'd have a guy, come out with one boxing glove. Like, his style was boxing, but I only had one boxing glove. He was like the Michael Jackson of boxing or whatever. The fuck is that? Or you'd have a guy like Chemo who, would carry a gigantic full-size cross like he was Jesus, carrying it to the ring because, this was his way of vanquishing the devils inside of the cage. I don't know what this fucking reasoning was. I might be making shit up too. So you had all of these like gimmick things, right? These Emmanuel Yarbrough, gigantic 475,000 fucking pound sumo wrestler taking on, a little skinny dude from Niagara Falls or something. Like, it was set up for all of this stuff. But one of the things one of the first guys, and I'm going to share something with you guys here. One of the first guys to ever bring the Gracies to North America was Chuck Norris. And I'm going to play just a little bit of this here.
Fighting with theirs would probably be the most formidable way of fighting in the world. With our method of kicking and punching, with theirs of control, would be just phenomenal. So they did agree to come down and give a seminar today. I would like to introduce them to you. The oldest son is Horion Gracie, who is the oldest of the sons, and then Pelson, the second, and then Pixon, who is the champion, by the way. He's the champion of Brazil and probably everywhere else. And then Hoyce.
And there you go right there. So down the line, you see, everybody knows the lore of Rickson Gracie and fighting on beaches with all of these other guys and just fist fights. And then there was little Hoyce, and as bad as a dude as Hoyce might have been, he was not even close to the range of killer that some of these other guys were.
Next, another son, Gracie, and then Helion, Volker, and what is that? Henso, Carlos, say my name.
And then, of course, Henzo Gracie, we all know.
Hoyer, which is another Gracie.
And then Hoyer Gracie.
All come in from
and so some of these guys, they all came in and they would put on these little seminar for Chuck and his guys. And now in doing so, they would show some of the most basic and ridiculous stuff, like this right here. Okay. Just, switch into a hammerlock, a headlock, Now you look at some of this stuff, the way that they're doing this is all just very performative and doesn't really have any basis on a real fight whatsoever. Footwork isn't even right. You know, I'm looking at all of this stuff going back now, and I look at it from a professional wrestler's point of view, right? That foot's going to be back because you could just pick him up, and you're going from headlock to hammerlock, other headlock. Look, you just grab that leg right there. It's you know, a lot of the stuff that we do, okay, a lot of the stuff that we do inside of professional wrestling, you know, there is real application to it in martial arts. And Chuck Norris being the guy who brought that stuff to light. And I can remember we would always have our, black belt testing would be Chuck and his crew, his team of black belts were the guys that you had to go in front of for your black belt testing, which was always fun to be a part of and watch at the same time. And we would have these fighting tournaments. And I can remember I got disqualified from my first handful of fighting tournaments because some of the rules that you had were stupid. I've never understood. I get it from a sanctioning point of view, but in a real fight, rules aren't really a fucking thing, right? So some of the rules in tournament point fighting, much like in, the Karate Kid movies and stuff like that, but even more so. So, for example, you could kick somebody in the groin, and you could kick them in the head, but you could not even feint a punch to the head. So as you square off with somebody, you couldn't fake a back fist to the head or could have killed you, Billy, right? Johnny 1.0, don't ever apologize for being late. We're just glad that you finally made it here. Thank you so much for joining us. We're just talking about some tournament fighting. And now I would constantly be disqualified for stuff. Now, let me reiterate. Sorry. You could not fake a punch to the head. You could kick to the head, and you could kick to the groin, kick to the legs, kick to the body. Okay. And because I would always get warnings, because you see the opening and you're like, oh, it's right there. Boom. Throw a fist up in the face. It's like, I could have killed you, Billy. Straight out of Young Guns. Could have killed you. Nope. That's a warning. You can't do that again. So I got really frustrated with stuff with like, well, what am I supposed to do? Just because I'm taller and I got good long legs with a fast little snappy kick. And what am I going to just win these things with kicks to the groin? That seems silly. Like I would much rather go into a tournament where I can get punched in the face than kicked in the balls. Right. So it never really turned out so well for me. And I got away from doing tournament fighting altogether. But there's dudes that have made a career out of this. Right. Chip Wright for one of them. And nobody on that entire black belt team, right, works harder or worked out harder than Chuck Norris did. That guy is a machine where after you got your black belt, he would invite all of you to come work out at his training facility, at his home and in his ranch, right? And you got to work out there, and nobody works out harder. Absolutely not. Everybody would be puking, laying there in their pools of sweat and puke, sometimes blood, trying to get push-ups done, trying to get sit-ups done, trying to get jogging in place done, trying to get all of these things done, because Chuck wants you to know if you want to be a champion at this, you're going to have to work really hard. And like I said, nobody worked harder than Chuck. So I thank all of them for being able to put me through those things and those rigors. And it was really funny after I had moved out of Las Vegas into Canada. I had never really found a place that I wanted to train until I finally found a place through some people. And we ended up training in Hapkido. And I can remember the first day that I went there and met the instructor, and he was like, well, what do you know? What have you already taken? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I've taken a couple of things here and there. Yeah, you don't really brag about stuff like that especially when you walk into somebody else's house like that, right? Guys that walk into other gyms, especially martial arts gyms, and brag about the stuff that they've done in other martial arts gyms, it usually doesn't end well because they end up getting put up against somebody who is like the house ringer. And you're never good at the techniques that they do when you first walk in there. So the first thing you have to learn, which is basically something you need to learn, a lot more people need to learn this in life, is you just need to shut the fuck up. Simple. Just shut the fuck up. Keep your mouth shut. Keep your ears open. So I went into it with that mentality, and the guy instructor asked me, he's going, well, let's see what you know. Throw a kick for me. Okay, what kind of kick would you like to see? Just throw a front kick. I throw a front kick. Throw a side kick. I throw a side kick. Throw a inside crescent kick. Throw a spinning heel kick. Let's see what kicks you can do. And after about the third kick, he looks at me and he goes, did you take Tang Sudo or Taekwondo? It looks more like Tang Sudo. And I was like, wow. Like, these dudes know, right? These dudes absolutely know. And I was like, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what I took, was Tang Sudo. Donkey Kongington hits it right on the head. People who talk about how much ass they can kick usually haven't kicked much ass. Yeah. The other side of that, Donkey Kongington, is that, like, a lot of times you should never have to kick ass. A lot of things can always be accomplished and worked out by words, right? And just diffusing situations and knowing how to talk to people, knowing how to communicate. Because you should never get down to having to punch people in the face. This for defensive purposes only, is what they tell you, right? The last thing that I want to do is get hit in the face because it hurts. I don't like it. Puts me in a bad mood. I got to wake up in the morning feeling like shit, probably have a bruise, maybe a cut, broken bone maybe. Definitely hands are hurting. I don't like it. I never did like it, right? And of course, yes, there are a few exceptions, right? But sometimes these things happen. So if you could talk it through, talk it through. But like I said, when I went there on that day, and he told me, he said, it looks like this is what you've taken. I was like, absolutely right. So, okay, we can work with that. We're going to strip all of that stuff down and teach you how to do it the way that we do it, which was using a lot more weight transfer, a lot more, pendulum motion with your punches, with your kicks, with your ability to divert direction with people. Hapkido very much like Aikido, but just with a lot more violence to it. Hapkido is violent as fuck. The head instructor of Eagle Hapkido is a gentleman by the name of Master Wong In Shik. And if you get a chance to look him up, please do so. If you've ever seen any Jackie Chan movies, you may have seen him in a couple of them. If you've ever seen any Angela Mao movies, you've seen him in there. One of the greatest scenes, in my opinion, inside of a Jackie Chan movie, and maybe I'm a little biased because it does have to do with Master Wong, is that Master Wong played this long, scraggly-haired, dude who got broken out of his chains and escaped from the cops. He gets into a fight with Jackie Chan. Shocking. I know. But the things that he does to Jackie in this movie are real. They hurt. And he basically twisted Jackie Chan and tossed him around for, I think, the 5-minute scene that it was, the fight scene in this movie, legit. And it is unbelievable. It's a movie called Young Tiger, something like that. Wow. I just drew a complete brain fart, aneurysm, blanked out. But look him up, Master Wong In Cheek. Very small little dude. Used to get booted off of the islands for, beating up the local heroes, right? He's the traditional bad guy in a lot of these old kung fu movies. And the style for what he would do is fantastic. Unbelievable. Anita Herrera, good morning to you. Good morning, sweetie, and go Steelers. I cannot get behind the Go Steelers movement. Everybody knows there's only one official NFL team in the state of Pennsylvania, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Steelers, however, the only reason I even recognize them is because of my uncle Andy. Otherwise, I wouldn't even recognize the Steelers as a team. Thank you very much. So the Steelers pretty much have their entire existence they need to thank my uncle Andy for even anybody knowing who in the hell they are, because nobody is a bigger Steelers fan than that guy. Trust on that. Hope you and Andy are doing well. Antonita, thank you so much for joining this little TiDtalk of mine. This rambling session for an hour, if you will, right? As we talk about some of the crazy things that I've been through, some of the stories of my life. And there's going to be some even crazier ones coming up. There's no doubt about it. One of the things that I'll always remember in the world of Hapkido, we had this little tiny girl who came in to train, and because of leverage and technique and whatnot, and this girl was maybe 75 pounds and like 12, 13 years old, 75 pounds, maybe 5 foot, maybe 5'1", right? And she would go out there and grab dudes my size, 6'4", 280 pounds, and just mollywop us with throws and twists. And it's one of these things, you can either go with it or you can get something broken. So you always go with it. So technique and seeing children being able to implement martial arts is always my favorite thing. I don't believe so much, I believe that every child should learn some sort of self-defense, and not necessarily for self-defense purposes, but for the purposes of self-esteem. Because that is the one thing that I learned throughout all of this stuff. More important than anything, more important than being able to throw a kick or block a punch. Because let's face facts, all of that karate bullshit is exactly that. Fucking bullshit. At no time, while watching the Karate Kid and thinking to myself, if I ever get into a street fight, that I'm going to have to throw, an inside block, a high block, and step back and, front kick to the solar plexus and low blocks and turns. And you see in the tournaments, you see all these what are called forms in American, or katas. You'd see all of these things, which is basically like, it means like, invisible fighting. You're fighting 4 or 5 dudes at once, but they're invisible, so you're not getting hurt. You're just going through the motions of throwing the blocks and throwing the kicks, right? Throwing the punches. And it was really just a play on everything that you had ever seen inside of a kung fu movie, right? And it is one of the stupidest things ever. Because at no time, if you're ever fighting 4 dudes at once, 4 females at once, 4 humans at once, listen, you're going to get your ass kicked. At some point or another, you're going to catch something. Unless you're fighting 5 drunks that can barely stand up straight, right? Somebody's going to catch you with something. So all of that low block to high block to outside block to inside crescent kick to jump spinning heel kick, whatever. Get fucked. Learn how to talk it out or fucking run. There is zero shame in running away from a fight, ladies and gentlemen. Zero. Right? Unless you got no place to go, who gives a shit? We are getting quick to winding down on this one. Terry Nee says, I keep Eagles and Steelers flags at our home so various relatives from both sides of the state feel it's neutral ground. Oh, look at you, Terry. You're like Switzerland of Pennsylvania up in this motherfucker. And I do like the fact that you kept the Eagles first billing on that statement. Thank you very much. Because everybody knows that that's Philly's real, that's Pennsylvania's real team, right? And I only say this stuff because I love busting my Uncle Andy's chops. I'm sure he's listening somewhere in the background. But yes, I do hope, I do hope that the Steelers do well, I guess, just not well enough. Listen, both of our teams, both the Steelers and the Eagles, have had questionable players play for their team. There's no doubt about it. I mean, of course, I wouldn't be talking about Ben Roethlisberger and his antics when he played. And then, of course, for the Philadelphia Eagles, yes, we also had a quarterback that was less stellar in life, so to speak, and one Michael Vick. Right now, let me tell you the kind of heat that causes when you deal with animal rescue and you deal with puppies and all of that kind of stuff. But your favorite team's quarterback is Michael Vick. Oh, those were some rough days having Michael Vick as your quarterback. But one man does not make the team, right? Unless, of course, that team happens to be the Kansas City Chiefs. In which case you're screwed if you don't have, Mahomes. Or if you don't have Kelsey, which was quite apparent by that Thursday night game. Anyways. So, once again, I hope that everybody is having a great time. What is this? Okay, this I got to see. Donkey Kongington says, I watched a man knock 4 people out once with 4 fluid motions, and I mean out. All I could think was, man, I'm glad I never fucked with them. Oh, yeah. There's always going to be examples. There's always going to be, 4 guys. Now, let me ask you that. Let me ask you this, Donkey Kongington. Was this at a bar? Or was this in the middle of a park or a school or in the courthouse? My guess is that it was at a club or a bar or some kind of an event that involved alcohol, right? Because you would think after that second and third guy got knocked out, that 4th guy would have been, hightailing it the F out of there. There's no doubt about it, right? I have been in those situations where I've hit 2, 3 people in fluid motions, sent them all down, none of which were sober, right? I mean, I wasn't either, but I clearly was more sober. But it happens. And there's always going to be those dudes, those anomalies. You see videos of I forget who it was. It was a famous skateboarder, maybe Vallely. I forget who it was. But there's a video out there of him basically dismantling, 4 or 5 dudes out on the street, right? Right in front of the bar it happened, right? There you go. Right in front of the bar. It happened so fast no one could believe it. Absolutely. Right? Chances are those 4 dudes were lipping off to the wrong guy, thought, what the fuck can this guy do? There's 4 of us and there's 1 of him. Yeah, I've seen that happen. I've been part of that. We're going to be telling some stories about how when I worked for about 13 years in private security and running door. And some of the nightclub stories that we'll get into going forward are pretty goddamn funny. We would actually have meetings. We would have staff meetings, doorman meetings, right? Just the doorman. And because a lot of us all trained together, right? We all trained together at the same places. we would have these meetings and we would pick out what was going to be known as the move of the night. Okay. Now, that didn't mean that you went and tried to, do things that you weren't supposed to just for the sake of doing it. It wasn't like, clothesline is the move of the night. And instead of grabbing somebody by their arm and walking them out, you just decapitate them like Big Van Vader or something like that and hope for the best. No, it wasn't anything like that. It was, if you found yourself in the situation and you would try to hit that move of the night, yes, we would actually bonus you out for hitting that move. It was like he had them measured out before he even made a move. Absolutely. You have to, right? If you ever watched that Sherlock Holmes, Robert Downey Jr. versions of the Sherlock Holmes movies, where he has the full scene of, if I do this, then this, then this, then this, then this, these things are going to happen in this fight. And then he goes and does it. Some of the things that we would do working as doorman was I would tell you, I would give you an opportunity. You can leave. If you continue this, I'm going to break your whatever I felt like at the time, right? I'm going to break your hand. I'm going to break your wrist. I'm going to break your ankle. I'm going to break something that's going to be easily broken, easy for me to do, but it's going to at least put something into your head to like, fuck, do I really want this to happen? Right? And hopefully you walk away from it, being able to diffuse something and not making it go any further. Absolutely go see that. The Sherlock Holmes versions. Very good fight scenes. Fantastic. Also, a friend of mine in there, the big gigantic man known as Robert Mallet, wrestled in the WWE as Kurgan. Good friend of mine. If you've ever listened to any of the old episodes of Godfathers of Podcasting, you can go back and you can actually listen to an interview that we did with him not that long ago. And, we'll have to have him on again shortly. But we would do things like that, and we would have like a move of the night, right? Which was kind of funny because the way that I got my job working the front door and running the front door of one of the clubs was a guy that I was walking out got into it with our head of security outside, and I was standing behind the head of security. And when it came, he's lipping off to the head of security, the guy that got walked out. He didn't feel like he should get thrown out. Explained why he was getting thrown out. You can't smoke drugs inside of the club. And then when you didn't want to put it out, you got asked to leave. When you didn't want to leave, you got escorted out. Simple. Them's the rules. You broke them. So he starts lipping off with the head of security. And I can see that it's escalating. Head of security guy can see that it's escalating. And the guy went to take a punch, throw a sucker punch at the head of security. And I seen it. And I shoved the head of security out of the way as he was moving out of the way himself. But I shoved him out of the way, grabbed the guy by the back of over the top of the head, the scruff, pulled him down, literally picked him up and power bombed him onto the sidewalk. That's right. WWE style, Kevin Nash fucking power bomb a dude onto the sidewalk. And it was at that point that the head of security said, I need somebody to watch this VIP line. Now he ended up leaving. I ended up taking over his job, but that's how I got to work in clubs, was by doing special moves to somebody. That's right. You can't smoke drugs in the club. Donkey Kongington. No, there were no thumbtacks involved on the sidewalk. That came later. All of that stuff. But obviously I've always had a huge infatuation with professional wrestling and how real some of those moves could be. I used to do some of these moves onto my little brother. I used to practice sleeper holds on my little brother and then just, once he was out, just let him drop. Not the nicest things to do, right? We used to practice real arm bars on him. We used to practice on our friends. We used to, see how fast you could choke somebody out, right? At a young age, well before any of this kind of stuff, before I had jobs insecurity or anything like that. And these are the things that we would do. Listen, I've never professed to be a good person growing up. I'm a piece of shit, right? You don't do that to your little brother, right? I remember one time I was wrestling with him and I picked him up. I slammed him on the ground and he rolled over onto his stomach. And when he rolled over onto his stomach, all I could think to myself was, I'd drop an elbow on him, right? But I was smart enough and I was conscious enough to know that if I drop an elbow on his back, on his spine, holy shit, there's a real chance that that could fuck him up, right? Because we were also in the garage at the time. So it's a cement floor in the garage. So, I wasn't his body was going to take the brunt of my falling because I wasn't going to slam myself into the floor. And so when you look at somebody who's laying face down and you see them laying there and you think, oh, I could drop this on his shoulders or I could drop this on his lower back. No, what I picked was the most cushioned area of a human body when they're laying on their stomach, right? Because you think to yourself, out of all those places, what's the most pillowy? What's the softest? What has the most meat, right? And of course, it's your ass. So I thought to myself, you're about to drop an elbow on your little brother's ass. And by drop an elbow, I mean like that Randy Savage style, in case some of you people don't understand what I'm talking about. And so I did. And I hooked that thing back like I was Dusty Rhodes, and I laid right over and boom! Dropped an elbow right on my little brother's ass. Nailed it. Perfect. Both ass cheeks got him. Crushed. Well, the thing is my little brother decided that was unacceptable, and he literally jumped up like he had been stuck with a cattle prod and ran off. Pardon me. And he ran off screaming, yelling at the top of his lungs. And he runs into the bathroom. And he locks himself in the bathroom and he's still screaming. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm in so much trouble here. I'm going to get in trouble for this one. So I've got to try to diffuse this thing. So I'm like, what's the matter? Jay, what's the problem? Like, come on, come out of there. And he's yelling, no, I'm not coming out of here. I'm telling mom. I'm like, you come on. Stop being such a pussy. You're not telling mom. No, I'm telling mom. You're not fucking telling mom. If you tell mom, I'm gonna really beat your ass. I don't care. I'm telling mom. You fucking hurt me. I'm like, no, I didn't. I dropped an elbow on your ass. Soft. Why are you being such a pussy? What do you mean I hurt you? He goes, I'm telling mom because you bruised my dick. I said, what? So these are the things that you'll learn about physics when you drop something, and there's called hypershocking, where you hit something on one side and the impact goes through to the other side. Well, in doing so, I dropped an elbow on his ass and literally drove his, little prepubescent pecker right into the cement floor of a garage. And at that point, all I could think to myself was, yeah, okay, go ahead and tell mom. That's pretty goddamn funny. Because if you tell mom, then I'm going to be telling everybody at school about how you're walking around with a bruised pecker, you little shithead. So like I said, I never professed to have grown up as a, altar boy in any way, shape, or form. I was not a good kid. I was even a less stellar teenager and a really shitty young adult. And, I just kind of muddle through now. No, he was not hard at the time. And little brother and ass are synonymous, Terry. Yes, you're absolutely right. These are the things, okay? These are the things that older brothers, older siblings do to younger siblings. That's just the nature of the beast, ladies and gentlemen. If you were born the younger sibling, you better learn some tricks, right? Because you're going to get beat up. You're going to get picked on. You're going to get embarrassed. You're going to get put through the ringer. It's just the way it goes, right? Also, the other thing you have to remember about being the younger sibling is you can't get away with shit. Nothing. Nada. 9. Just like this episode 9, because you can't get away with it because the older brother, the older sibling, the older sister, whoever it is, they've already done it. They've already done it and got away with it, or at least got away with it enough to where the parents had to be smartened up about it. So by the time you tried it as the younger sibling, you're fucked. You weren't getting away with shit, right? Always the way. Always the way. Learn to be really good by being a little bad. Exactly, Terry Nee. Exactly. Learn to be really good by being a little bad. I mean, listen, the universe does crazy things, but the road always ends up leading you to right where you are. How's that for some profound bullshit to end this thing off, huh? The road to right where you are. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we are a little bit over an hour here, and I do want to give everybody an opportunity to get their nachos made. Check that brisket on your barbecue or on your smoker. Make sure you open up the gate for your friends to come over. Make sure the pool is clean, the yard is cut, and the beer is cold because football season's about to kick off. And I know I'm timelining this thing by saying that because it's episode 9 and it's opening day. But God damn it, I don't care because it's mine. It's TiDtalk. It's not you talk. It's TiDtalk. And as much as I tried to get away from, not using that name after I left wrestling, it seems like people just don't want to say the name Chris. So who am I to tell them otherwise? So from now on and for the rest of my days, I guess to all of you that aren't my family, aren't the people that are calling me Chris, because it's really weird if my aunts and uncles just call me Tid. Because it's the first 3 letters of my last name, and that last name is Tidwell. And Tidwell isn't necessarily a name that is well-liked inside of my family. Thankfully, I'm the last one, and they have no choice. So for all of those times that I changed my name, because it seemed like whoever my mom had married, I just changed my name to that last name with going to school. So, I had a lot of last names. 5 to be precise. 6, I think, because I made one up. And you can go back in one of the other episodes. Start at the beginning. I forget which one it is, but you'll find that story. It's a good one. So, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much to all of you that have tuned in, that have listened to this. Hit that like button for me. Let's get that algorithm pumped up. Send this out to your friends. Share it. That would be the greatest thing that you could do for me, right? And let's go birds. Everybody have yourselves a fantastic Sunday. Next week, episode 10, the same time, like I said, 11:30 Pacific time, AM that is, not 11:30 p.m., 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. And again, all of this found over at my YouTube channel, at TiDtalks. Also, you can check me out on Facebook, my real name, Chris Tidwell. All of my other socials on X, which was Twitter, and Instagram, at Notorious TID. I hope you all have a wonderful Sunday. I hope you all have a great time hanging out with your friends, your family. Enjoy the weather. The last little bit of summer is upon us. And until I see y'all next time, be nice to one another. Don't be like I did. And have a wonderful day.